Alrighty. Hello there, YouTube. Bruised here again, where today we're talking about my near crash out I've had while making this character, honestly. This video is overall just kind of a bit of a small discussion, but also mostly kind of a buyer beware type situation. This character took me 22 hours, almost 23 hours, to get to maps, which realistically, again, I am just somebody that always plays the whatever build I'm going to be playing in the end game is always what I do. I don't ever just level as one thing and then respec later to the actual build I'm going to run. So it was really, really painful to play this character all the way through to the point where I can wield Mjolnir. And the coolest thing is basically just how this weapon looks. The rest of this weapon, I unfortunately have bad news if you have not really looked into what Mjolnir does. So this is Mjolnir. It works a lot like it did in Path of Exile 1, or at least seemingly does if you just look at it from a glance. And this is again going to be what a majority of the video is about. So as you see here, it grants you the skill level 16 lightning spell on melee hit. It does get higher than level 16 if you get it when you're a little bit higher level. You can get one. I've seen one up to like level 78. I'm sure there's like level 80. I'm sure there's level 20 versions of the gem you can find versions of from Mjolnir, but I wanted to start using it as soon as possible. So level 66 roughly I think is the lowest. So with that, what I wanted to say is that I was using this and I discovered this very unfortunate thing as soon as I got to first lab with this character. This is a Smith of Katava, Gachi Bender, as you can see here. And what I discovered is that the fire spell on hit and the lightning spell on hit are both actually meta gems, which for this game, Path of Exile 2, means that the weapon and the weapon Mjolnir and just your other weapons in general do not actually trigger every single melee hit. What this instead means is that you generate energy, and as you can see here, while active, gains energy when you hit enemies with melee attacks, which then triggers the lightning spells on reaching max energy. You gain 3 energy per power of enemies you hit with melee attacks, modified by the percentage of the enemy's ailment threshold the hit will deal. So you need to scale getting the enemies, lowering the enemy's elemental ailment, which the only way I can really think of to do that is via overwhelming presence. So you basically have to use overwhelming presence, and then realistically the best and fastest mace skill that you can use to actually trigger your skills and trigger your spells is Mace Strike. And that's kind of it, because if we go and look at the rest of the mace skills that you could potentially use, Earthquake, no. Bone Shatter, I mean, you can use it as just like a generic combo piece to be using. Rolling Slam, absolutely not, that's too slow. Armor Breaker, again, you kind of use this as just like a piece to just kind of break armor and just kind of be dealing a bit more damage with your strike. Shockwave Totem won't do anything. Infernal Cry, no. Shield Charge, again, is just your movement, that's fine. Bone Blast is a projectile, so that does not work. Perfect Strike, you probably could Perfect Strike, maybe, but again, it's really slow, so you wouldn't be activating that fast, but yeah, I don't know. I don't want to use Perfect Strike full time. Resonating Shield, I actually don't know if this works, but even if it does, that would also feel awkward. Shield Wall, Earth Shatter, and Leap Slam are all big. Nope. Sunder is too slow. Volcanic Fissure is just a slam. It doesn't actually really do very much unless you're using other slams. Seismic Cry, no. Supercharged Slam, nope. Stampede, no. Hammer the Gods and Ancestor Warrior Totem are also no's. So what you're going to be using is indeed pretty much just Mace Strike. Again, maybe there is some other skill that you can potentially be using. But realistically, again, the whole point of this build that I put together was I was really hoping that you really would trigger the fire spell pretty much every hit, and then I wanted to pair that with Mjolnir and Valakos Vice, which then converts all of my fire damage to lightning damage, and then just kind of try to scale lightning damage, some other ailment stuff, all that kind of good stuff. But unfortunately, like I said, you don't. It's very much so. I was very close to crashing out while I made this character. It was really not fun to level as. I would not recommend anybody level as this build. I'll quickly show you kind of what it looks like in terms of the build itself. I'm not going to run this full map because, yeah, I just don't like how this feels overall. So, like I said, TLDR, you don't trigger every single hit. So here we go. Just breaking some armor. There we go. I got a spell or two out. Yep, there's Arc. So I'm using Arc and Fireball. Those are my two spells that I'm using. You could use other spells, of course. I just kind of realistically didn't. I like Fireball in this game. I like Fireball, so I wanted to use it. And then Arc. They're swarming. But yeah, as you can see, there's Arc again. There's Fireball. It doesn't trigger every hit. You just have to kind of just stand there and just pound away. There went Arc. I saw it. And you can see in the top left up there, we're gaining energy every time we're hitting, and then the spell goes off, all that kind of good stuff. And realistically, the build itself also just isn't great. I didn't really build this. I didn't build this nearly as optimally enough. But I just wanted to give a very quick showcase on how that works. Very disappointing to me personally. I have so much fun with Mjolner in Path of Exile 1, triggering every single hit. I know, of course, cycloning isn't the most exciting thing, but let me tell you, mace striking is even worse. And the other thing is that this thing still has a really high attribute requirement. It's still really hard to hit. It's kind of hard to hit that 248, 200 int with this build. Now, I will also say it's probably not all doom and gloom for Mjolnir. Hopefully in the future they add more maybe strike skills, or maybe just make mace skills feel a little bit better. But I feel like with some different strike skills, maybe with some better scaling, some different things, Mjolnir could reasonably feel better to use. And the other thing I wanted to just kind of point out is if you built this instead as, say, a Ritualist, which is the new, that's the other Huntress thing, you could do this as probably like an Invoker or a Ritualist. And one of the things is you can get the extra ring slot on the Ritualist, and one of the paths that you can take gives you minus 20% to all elemental resistances. So I think what you would do instead is run Mjolnir, and then run Doriani's Prototype, and then get like Ventor's Gambles, get like 3 Ventor's Gambles with a bunch of minus lightning res, and really just scale your own lightning res down, and then just use Mjolnir plus the Doriani's Prototype, and that might be okay, but again, it's still going to be boring because you're just running around mace striking everything. So I don't know. Like I said, this is kind of just a fairly quick, I just wanted to give just almost, again, like I said, kind of a buyer beware type deal, or if you were like considering making a build with Mjolnir, keep in mind, or if you're making a build even with the fire spell on hit from Smith of Katava, keep in mind, these again, they are meta skills and require energy to then generate and actually trigger your spells, trigger your skills. If you were going to do purely a fire spell Katava build type deal, I think you could, but I would do it with something like a quarterstaff or a spear instead of a mace. And if you were going to do something with Mjolnir, like I said, I'd probably do Invoker or Ritualist. Go over here, take this node here as well, because it's also very expensive to actually anoint that onto your amulet. So I would say probably just go over here and scale on this side of the tree. It might turn out a little bit better. But overall, like I said, it's still a mace, and you still have to, since you don't trigger every hit, and you were just triggering far less frequently, it's a bit more awkward. Against unique enemies, I will say it triggers far more frequently, because again, it's based on the power and the elemental ailment threshold of the enemy. So realistically, a unique enemy is going to give you a lot more energy, and you can kind of build it and ramp faster. But what can I say? What can I say? Science had to be done, and unfortunately, on today's episode of Science, it just was not. It was not a good experience for me. The best thing I can say about the build and the character really is that Mjolnir looks super cool in-game. I love the in-game art. I love the in-game model. I love the idea of it. It just unfortunately does not really feel that great. Anyway, that's really all I had as far as this build and character goes. If you have any questions or anything, I guess let me know. But otherwise, hope you're still enjoying Path of Exile: Dawn of the Hunt. They're still putting out new patches, still doing new things. Some things further coming down the line. Still be a good time. I'll probably swap back over to my Lightning Huntress that I had, or do something else wacky. Who knows? By the way, stay sane out there, Exiles. See you next time.